Okay, so picture this. You pour your money into something you believe in, hold on to it for 3 years, watch it finally hit a major milestone, and then poof, it drops like a roller coaster. And that's exactly what Cardano investors have been dealing with.
It's pretty wild, right?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
we're going to break it all down today using this recent article from you today about Cardano, or ADA as it's known in the crypto world. We'll cover its price swings and what might be driving them.
Sounds good.
So whether you're already into crypto or just trying to wrap your head around all the buzz, this deep dive will give you all the need-to-know info to understand what's going on with Cardano.
Definitely. And the article highlights this really interesting thing. Cardano actually broke through the $1 mark for the first time in 3 years, back on November 23rd.
Wow, 3 years. That's a long time to wait.
It is. And while $1 might not seem like a huge number in the world of crypto, those psychological barriers can be really significant.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about the dollar amount itself, but what that number represents to investors.
Exactly. Hitting a milestone like that creates this sense of momentum and attracts a ton of attention. Suddenly, you have new investors jumping in thinking they're catching the wave early, and even seasoned investors can get caught up in the excitement.
So it fuels this whole cycle of price increases.
Exactly. It's self-perpetuating.
Fascinating. But as we all know, that party didn't last long. The article mentions that Cardano's price dipped back below $1 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What happened there? Was it just people getting cold feet?
It's rarely ever that simple.
I figured.
The thing is, the crypto market is like this crazy interconnected web.
Yeah.
And the article points out that Bitcoin, the OG of crypto.
Like the granddaddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Bitcoin also took a bit of a tumble around the same time.
Interesting.
And when Bitcoin sneezes, the rest of the market tends to catch a cold.
Okay, so how does that actually work? Is it like a domino effect?
Think of it more as a shift in the overall market sentiment. When Bitcoin drops, it creates this ripple of uncertainty throughout the entire crypto world. Investors get spooked. They start selling off their assets. And that selling pressure drives prices down across the board.
So even if Cardano itself didn't do anything wrong, it could still get pulled down by Bitcoin.
Precisely. Now, the article does mention that Cardano has actually been one of the top performers in the crypto world over the past month. So does this recent dip change that bigger picture? Or is it just a temporary blip?
It's a really good question. It seems like every day the market is swinging one way or another.
It does, and that's why it's so important to look beyond those day-to-day fluctuations and focus on the fundamentals, the long-term potential.
Right. And speaking of fundamentals, the article mentions that 68% of Cardano holders were in the money.
Hmm.
Can you explain what that means for those of us who aren't fluent in crypto jargon?
Sure. In the money basically means that these investors were holding Cardano at a price lower than the current market value. So if they decided to sell, they'd be making a profit.
Got it. So could this dip be a result of those investors cashing out and locking in their gains? Is that a sign of healthy growth, or could it be a red flag?
It's actually pretty common for investors to take profits when they see a decent price increase.
Especially in a market as unpredictable as crypto.
Exactly. It's not necessarily that they're losing faith in the asset, but it does highlight just how important it is to understand investor behavior.
That's all psychology at the end of the day, right?
A lot of it is. Now, moving on from the price swings. The article emphasizes that Cardano is really focused on the long game on development and not just riding the hype waves. And they mention some pretty technical stuff like the Chang hard fork and the Hydra Doom testnet update.
Yeah, when I saw those terms, I was like, this is where I get lost.
Uh-huh. It does sound a bit intimidating.
So can you demystify that for us? What are these updates in plain English, and why should we care?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with the Chang hard fork. You can kind of think of a hard fork as a major split in the blockchain's code, which leads to two separate versions. And in this case, this hard fork was designed to make Cardano's governance even more decentralized, making it more resilient and less prone to manipulation.
So it's all about spreading the power and making the system more secure.
Exactly. Now, the Hydra Doom testnet update is a bit different. A testnet is like a practice arena for developers where they can try out new features before they go live. And Hydra itself is a layer 2 scaling solution.
Okay, so another term to unpack.
Right. So basically, it sits on top of the main Cardano blockchain to make things faster and more efficient.
Got it. So this update is all about boosting the transaction speeds and handling a much higher volume of transactions.
Precisely.
Okay. So why is that such a big deal? What's the bigger picture here?
Well, if we connect this back to the whole idea of Cardano being a platform for all sorts of applications like smart contracts, then speed and scalability becomes super important.
Right, because the more transactions the network can handle, the more powerful and versatile it becomes.
Exactly. They're building the infrastructure for a whole ecosystem, not just focusing on the price of ADA itself.
That's a pretty different approach from what we see with some other players in the crypto space.
It is, and that's one of the reasons Cardano has attracted such a dedicated community of developers and investors. They believe in the long-term potential.
It's not just about the quick buck.
Right. And it's not without its critics, of course.
Well, that brings me to my next question. The article highlights Cardano's reliability as a key advantage, stating it's been running for years without any downtime. Is that really such a big deal in the world of crypto?
It absolutely is. Think about it. You're relying on a decentralized system to handle sensitive transactions or store important data. You need to know that system is going to be up and running when you need it.
Right. Makes sense.
And Cardano has a really strong track record in that area, especially compared to some of its competitors.
I've heard that Solana, for example, is known for its speed, but it's also had some pretty high-profile outages.
That's right. So for those who prioritize stability and security, this reliability is a major selling point for Cardano.
But is it just one piece of the puzzle, or is it the be-all and end-all?
Well, it's definitely a key factor, but it's important to ask, what are the trade-offs?
Trade-offs. Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, Cardano's focus on reliability and its very methodical development process can sometimes come at the cost of speed. They're not always the first to market with the latest and greatest features.
So it's like the age-old dilemma of quality versus speed.
Exactly. And in a fast-moving industry like crypto, that can be a disadvantage.
So are they playing it safe, or are they missing out on opportunities to innovate faster?
That's a great question, and one that we're going to dive into even deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back after a quick break.
It's interesting. Cardano isn't just about building a faster or cheaper cryptocurrency.
Right.
It's about creating this whole platform, almost like a decentralized operating system.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Sure.
So I'm picturing like the Android or iOS of the blockchain world.
Exactly. They're providing the foundation for developers to build all sorts of applications on top of Cardano, from financial tools to supply chain management systems and beyond.
Wow, the possibility.
And they're doing it all with this emphasis on security reliability and a really rigorous research-driven approach.
That sounds pretty different from the whole move fast and break things mentality we often see in tech.
It is. Cardano's taking a much more deliberate path.
Which has its pros and cons, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. It might mean they're not always the first ones out there with the flashy new features, but it also means they're less likely to run into those major technical issues or security vulnerabilities down the line.
So it's kind of like choosing between the hare and the tortoise.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. The hare might be quicker off the mark, but the tortoise is in it for the long haul.
Exactly. And sometimes slow and steady wins the race. Now, when we talk about Cardano's potential, it's not just about building a robust platform.
Right.
It's also about using that platform to tackle real-world problems.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting for me. Give me some examples. What kind of problems are we talking about?
Well, think about areas where trust, transparency, and security are absolutely essential, like supply chain management.
Okay, I'm listening.
With Cardano, you could track a product's entire journey, from the manufacturer all the way to the consumer.
Interesting.
Ensuring authenticity and eliminating counterfeiting.
So no more fake designer bags or knockoff sneakers?
Exactly. And then there's identity verification. Imagine a world where you have complete control over your own digital identity.
Okay, that's a big one.
It would be securely stored on the blockchain. No more centralized databases that are vulnerable to hacks and breaches. You decide who has access to your information.
That would be a game changer for online privacy.
It would. And let's not forget about voting systems.
Oh, well, yeah.
Blockchain technology has the potential to revolutionize how we vote, making elections more transparent, secure, and tamper-proof.
No more hanging chads or accusations of fraud.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm on board with this vision. But let's get real for a second. There are always risks with any investment, especially in the world of crypto. So what are some of the potential downsides or red flags investors should be aware of when it comes to Cardano?
That's a really important question. One risk is simply competition.
Right.
The blockchain space is so dynamic. New projects are popping up all the time.
It's constantly evolving.
It is. So Cardano needs to keep innovating if they want to stay ahead of the curve.
No resting on their laurels.
Definitely not. And then there's regulation. Governments around the world are still figuring out how to approach cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that's a big question mark for the whole industry.
It is. And any new laws or restrictions could have a huge impact on the market.
In unpredictable ways.
Exactly. And of course, there's always the risk of unforeseen technical challenges.
Right. Even with the best intentions, things can go wrong.
They can. Even with a rigorous development process, bugs and vulnerabilities can still slip through the cracks.
So it sounds like investing in Cardano, or any cryptocurrency for that matter, requires a good amount of caution and research.
Absolutely. Do your research understand the risks and never invest more than you can afford to lose?
Words to live by. Now, let's say I'm an investor who's intrigued by Cardano's vision, but still a bit hesitant. What would make you personally invest in a cryptocurrency like this?
For me, I'm always drawn to projects that have a strong team, a clear vision, and a solid technical foundation. And I think Cardano checks those boxes.
Makes sense.
I also really appreciate their commitment to peer-reviewed research and their methodical approach to development.
It seems like you're cautiously optimistic about Cardano's future.
I'd say that's accurate. I think they have the potential to make a real impact, but it's still early days. We'll have to wait and see how things unfold.
We've talked a lot about the tech, the vision, the potential, the risks. But before we wrap things up, I want to come back to the human element. We've talked a lot about the tech, the vision, the potential, the risks. But before we wrap things up, I want to come back to the human element. If Cardano really wants to be more than just a way to make a quick buck, what kind of impact could it have on people's everyday lives? What would make someone listening to this right now say, I want to be a part of that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in all the hype and the charts and the price fluctuations, but it's important to take a step back and ask yourself, what kind of future am I actually investing in?
So let's put on our futurist hats for a moment.
Yeah.
What could a world powered by Cardano actually look like?
Okay, so imagine a world where you have total control over your own data, your identity, your medical records, your financial history, all of it securely stored on the blockchain, accessible only with your permission.
That's a powerful concept. Like taking back control in a world where data privacy feels like it's slipping away.
Exactly. And it goes beyond individual empowerment. It's about building a more transparent and equitable society as a whole. Think about supply chains, for example.
Oh, yeah.
You can trace the origin of a product with absolute certainty, ensuring ethical sourcing and fair labor practices.
So consumers could make more informed choices about the products they buy, knowing exactly where they came from and how they were made.
That's right. And then there's the potential for more secure and democratic elections.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine a system where every vote is recorded immutably on the blockchain.
No more questions about the results.
Exactly. It eliminates the possibility of fraud or manipulation, gives people more confidence in the system.
Those are some pretty compelling examples, and we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology, aren't we?
We are. It's a whole new way of thinking about how we organize information and interact with each other.
It's like the early days of the internet. So much potential just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting. Cardano, with its focus on security reliability and real-world problem solving, is in a great position to be a leader in this space.
But let's be realistic for a moment. There are tons of other players out there, all vying for a piece of the pie. What sets Cardano apart from the rest?
One thing that really stands out to me is their unwavering commitment to peer-reviewed research. They're not just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right, it's a very methodical approach.
It is. They're taking a scientific approach to development, which gives me more confidence in their long-term vision.
So they're not afraid to slow down and make sure they get it right.
Exactly. They understand that building truly transformative technology takes time and careful consideration.
That's refreshing perspective in a world that's so obsessed with instant gratification.
It is. And I think that long-term thinking will ultimately be what sets them apart. If they can continue to deliver on their promises and build a truly decentralized and impactful ecosystem, they have the potential to change the world.
So for anyone listening who's intrigued by Cardano but still on the fence,
Yeah.
what's your final piece of advice?
I'd say do your own research. Don't just take my word for it. Dive into the Cardano ecosystem. Read the white papers, talk to people in the community, and most importantly, ask yourself, do I believe in this vision? Do I see the potential?
Because at the end of the day, investing is about believing in something right.
It is. It's about putting your faith in a future you want to see.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. Until next time, keep diving deep, and don't be afraid to explore those uncharted waters of innovation.